The first time I noticed something wasn't right, I didn't even think to question it. It was one of those quiet, unremarkable evenings where everything seems fine, but in hindsight, the cracks were already forming. My name is Lucas. I'm not the kind of guy who notices small details, or at least, I didn't used to be. I guess I never thought I had to. My wife, Ava, and I have been married for nearly 3 years, but that's just the thing. 3 years isn't a lifetime, and I was beginning to realize how little I actually knew her. It all started with a simple gesture. She came home late one Friday night, way later than usual. Ava works long hours, but she always makes it home before midnight. I don't mind it. I've learned to be understanding. We both work hard, but sometimes she'd come back exhausted, ready to drop into bed with me and talk about our day, even if it was just for a little while. But this night was different. She came through the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and I barely even registered her presence. My attention was caught by the sudden chill in the air, the silence that enveloped the room. "Hey," she said quietly, her voice almost too soft. I looked up from the couch, my eyes meeting hers, but I didn't say anything. I hadn't realized how odd the moment felt until it was already too late. She didn't give me her usual smile, just a half-hearted one as she walked past me without another word. I thought maybe she was just tired. I mean, it had been a rough week at the office for both of us. But then something strange happened. I didn't hear her in the bathroom. I didn't hear the rustling of her getting ready for bed. It was like she was a ghost, completely absent in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't hear any noises from the bedroom at all. I found myself getting up from the couch, walking slowly down the hallway to check if everything was okay. I stopped just outside the bedroom door. I could hear her voice, but not to me. It was quiet, barely audible. She was on the phone. That wasn't so strange. But the tone of her voice, the way she was speaking, made my stomach drop. She was speaking so softly, almost like she didn't want anyone to hear her. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was enough to make my heart race. There was something in it, something I hadn't heard before, like she was hiding something or someone. I stood there for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob, trying to decide whether I should open the door. But before I could make a move, I heard her whisper, "I'll be home in a bit. Don't worry, I'm fine." I didn't know who she was talking to, but I felt a chill run down my spine. What was going on? Why was she hiding something from me? I didn't know it yet, but I was standing at the precipice of a truth I wasn't ready to face. Ava had always been a little secretive, but I never thought much of it. After all, what harm could there be in a little privacy, right? But that night, I realized that the walls between us had started to grow taller, and I wasn't sure I could tear them down. I decided to let it go for the night. I'd ask her about it in the morning, just a simple question. Surely, she'd tell me the truth. But little did I know, that question would never come. Instead, things would spiral in a way I couldn't have imagined. The next morning, I woke up alone. The bed was empty, and the space beside me felt colder than usual. Ava hadn't come back to bed, and that's when I started to wonder. I figured she had stayed up late, maybe working on something or talking to someone. But then I noticed something unusual. A small, folded piece of paper was sitting on the kitchen counter. At first, I thought it was just junk mail. But as I picked it up, I saw it was addressed to me, my name written in Ava's handwriting. I opened it, almost reluctantly, and as I read her words, my heart sank. "Please don't ask about last night. I'll explain when I'm ready." It was simple, but it hit me harder than any explanation could have. Ava, my wife, was hiding something from me, something important, something that she didn't want me to know. And I had no idea how deep this secret ran. I couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was waiting for me just beyond my reach. And that's when I made the decision. I wasn't going to wait. I had to know. Whatever it took, I was going to find out what she was hiding. The whole day dragged on, the silence between Ava and me growing thicker with each passing hour. She didn't come home until late, but this time, there was something different about her. Her eyes were a little too wide, like she hadn't slept, and her movements seemed slower, more deliberate. When she walked in, I was sitting on the couch, staring at my phone, pretending not to notice. She barely glanced at me, her usual warm smile absent. I forced a smile, trying to break the tension. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. I needed her to talk. I needed her to open up. Ava simply nodded, her eyes darting away as she walked past me. She didn't respond to my question, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. What was happening to us? Why was she acting so distant? As she passed by, I noticed a faint smell on her clothes, something unfamiliar. It wasn't perfume. It was something musky, almost like cologne. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was impossible not to. She had never worn cologne before. She went into the bathroom without saying a word. I sat there for a moment, the silence around me pressing down, making it hard to breathe. The unease had been building all day, and now it was reaching a breaking point. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had to know. But when I stood up to approach the bathroom, I hesitated. Maybe I was overthinking things. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But when I heard her phone buzz on the counter, I couldn't stop myself. I picked it up, just for a second. I didn't plan on looking at anything, just a quick glance. But then I saw it. A message from an unknown number. It read, "I'll pick you up tomorrow. Don't forget, we have plans." My stomach dropped. Who was this person? Why was Ava keeping this from me? I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. I couldn't keep avoiding this any longer. I needed answers. But before I could think, Ava stepped out of the bathroom, her eyes locking onto mine immediately. "Why do you have my phone?" she asked, her voice sharp. I froze. I had never seen her look at me like this before. There was no warmth, no affection, just coldness. I wasn't snooping. I just saw the message. I stammered. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she grabbed her phone out of my hand and walked out of the room. The door to the bedroom slammed shut behind her, and I was left standing there, my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to run after her, to demand the truth, but something told me that wouldn't help. She wasn't ready to tell me anything, not yet. The hours dragged by, and I couldn't stop thinking about the message. Who was this person? And why was Ava keeping them a secret? It was like a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. The more I thought about it, the more I knew I wasn't imagining things. Something was definitely off. I just had to figure out what it was. That night, when Ava finally came out of the bedroom, she was different. Her posture was stiff, and there was a coldness in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. She didn't even look at me when she sat down on the couch. She simply picked up her book and began flipping through the pages, like I wasn't even there. I couldn't stand it. "Ava," I said, my voice quieter than I wanted it to be. "What's going on? Why are you acting like this?" She didn't respond immediately. For a moment, it felt like we were in two completely different worlds, and it hit me harder than anything she could have said. I felt utterly alone. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "I told you not to ask," she muttered, barely looking up from her book. "I'm not ready to talk about it. Just leave it alone, Lucas." Her words cut through me like a knife. The coldness in her tone sent a chill through my entire body. "Leave it alone," I repeated, my voice rising. "How am I supposed to leave it alone when you're hiding something from me? What is it, Ava?" For the first time, she looked at me, really looked at me. But instead of the warmth I had once known, there was something darker in her gaze. Something I couldn't place. I said, "Don't ask," she snapped. I stared at her, my heart racing. I had never heard her speak to me like that. I was used to her calm, collected demeanor, but now, she was pushing me away in a way that felt almost deliberate. A long silence passed between us, and then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she added, "You won't like what you find, Lucas. Trust me." Her words echoed in my mind long after she had gone to bed, and all I could think was, what was I about to discover? The next few days passed in a blur of tension, like I was walking on eggshells, each step a calculated risk. Ava and I barely spoke. She would come home, retreat to the bedroom, and emerge only to grab a quick meal or a cup of coffee before disappearing back into her world. There was no warmth between us anymore, no shared moments, no laughter. It was like we were two strangers living under the same roof. I couldn't get the thought of her cryptic message out of my mind. "You won't like what you find," she had said. What was that supposed to mean? Was she trying to warn me away from something? Or was it some sort of twisted justification for the way she was acting? I couldn't understand why she was pushing me away so aggressively, and more than that, I couldn't understand why I couldn't bring myself to leave. Something in me still clung to the idea that I could fix this, whatever this was. One evening, after another awkward, silent dinner, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what she was hiding. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when clearly it wasn't. She had been acting distant for weeks, And now this sudden coldness, it was too much. As she went to the bedroom to change, I made my decision. I wasn't going to wait for her to tell me. I had to take matters into my own hands. I waited until she was deep in the bathroom, her footsteps muffled by the sound of the shower running. My heart was pounding in my chest as I walked to her nightstand, the drawer slightly ajar, almost as if it was waiting for me to open it. The quiet hum of the water was the only sound as I pulled the drawer open. I half expected to find nothing, just some random bits and pieces of makeup or loose change. But what I found made my blood run cold. There, nestled beneath a few old receipts, was a small, unmarked envelope. It was plain, the kind you might use to send a quick letter or document. My fingers trembled as I pulled it out, feeling the weight of it in my hand. It was too small to be a letter, too thick to be just a note. I slid my finger under the flap and opened it, not sure what to expect. Inside was a single piece of paper. At first glance, it looked like a simple note, a few lines of handwritten text. But as I read the words, my stomach twisted. The note was dated just a few days ago. "I'll be waiting tonight. Don't let him stop you. We both know what's at stake. It's now or never." My mind raced. What did this mean? Who was she meeting? Who was the him she was talking about? I could barely wrap my head around the implications of this note. I knew there was something I wasn't being told, but now it felt like I had stumbled upon a secret that went deeper than I could have ever imagined. Ava wasn't just keeping something from me. She was involved in something far darker than I could have ever expected. The sound of the shower stopped suddenly, and I froze. I quickly stuffed the note back into the envelope and shoved it into the drawer, slamming it shut just as Ava walked out of the bathroom. She looked at me briefly, her eyes flicking over me as if she could sense the tension in the room, but she said nothing. Her silence felt heavier now, like she was hiding something, actively avoiding me. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice lacking its usual warmth. I nodded, trying to mask the chaos swirling inside me. "Yeah, just tired." It was a lie, but I had to say something. I couldn't let her know I had seen the note. Not yet. I needed more time to figure out what was really going on. But as she turned to go back to the bedroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was unraveling. Ava wasn't the woman I thought I knew. The woman I had married, the woman I had built a life with, was gone. And in her place was someone else, someone I couldn't trust, someone who was keeping secrets from me that I wasn't sure I was ready to face. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the note pressing down on my chest. I had to know who this other person was. I had to know what kind of life Ava had been living behind my back. But the longer I lay there, the more I realized that I wasn't just looking for answers anymore. I was looking for the truth. And the truth was something I wasn't sure I could handle. The days that followed were a blur of tension, unanswered questions, and unspoken truths. Ava continued to retreat further into herself, each day pushing me further away. She was colder than I'd ever seen her, and every time I tried to reach out, she recoiled. I could feel the distance between us growing, thick and suffocating. The note, the cryptic message about waiting tonight, the mysterious hymn, all of it gnawed at me, pulling me deeper into a spiral of uncertainty. It wasn't just the note that haunted me. I kept replaying the night she came home late, the way she whispered, "Don't ask," as though she knew something I didn't. And now I was certain that something was happening behind my back, something she wasn't ready to admit. But I wasn't going to let it go. I needed to know. I had to understand what had been hidden from me. I spent the next few nights trying to figure out my next move. I knew I couldn't just confront her yet. I needed more proof, something concrete that would finally expose the truth. I couldn't let her play this game with me any longer. My frustration grew with each passing hour, but I kept my composure, maintaining the calm exterior that had always been my default. If I showed any signs of weakness, I knew Ava would shut me out even more. One evening, as I was going through the motions of a normal night, reading, watching TV, pretending everything was fine, something caught my eye. It was a small, discarded piece of paper on the floor near the kitchen. At first, I thought it was just another piece of junk, but when I picked it up, my pulse quickened. It was the same type of paper as the note I had found in her nightstand. The writing was hurried, almost frantic. "I can't keep lying to him. I don't know how much longer I can do this. We need to end this now, before he finds out." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt my breath catch in my throat as I processed what I had just read. She was talking about me. This wasn't just some random note. This was Ava confessing her guilt, her fear that I would uncover the truth. The question now wasn't just what she was hiding, but why she was hiding it so desperately. And who was we? Who else was involved in this twisted web of deceit? Before I could gather my thoughts, I heard Ava's footsteps coming down the hall. I quickly shoved the note into my pocket and tried to act casual, but my mind was racing. I had to play it cool. I couldn't let her know that I had found yet another piece of her secret life. She walked into the living room, her face expressionless. "You're still up?" she asked, though it sounded more like an accusation than a question. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just couldn't sleep." She didn't respond, just walked over to the kitchen and opened the fridge. I could feel the tension building between us like a slow-burning fuse. Something had to give, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. Ava grabbed a bottle of water and sat down at the table, her back to me. She had become a master at avoiding eye contact, like she was trying to shield herself from whatever was bubbling beneath the surface. I stared at her, wondering how much longer I could keep pretending I didn't know what was going on. Finally, unable to take it anymore, I spoke. "Ava, who's this person? Who are you meeting behind my back?" Her body stiffened at the question, and for the first time in days, she turned to face me. There was something cold in her eyes, something distant. "I told you not to ask." The words stung more than I expected, and for a moment, I could feel my heart racing in my chest. But I wasn't backing down this time. "I'm asking anyway. I deserve to know, Ava. What's going on? What have you been hiding from me?" She sighed heavily, her shoulders slumping slightly, as if she were preparing to break. "You wouldn't understand. It's not something you can just get." I was done with the cryptic answers, the avoidance. "Try me." Ava's eyes darted to the clock on the wall, her lips pressing into a tight line. For a moment, I thought she wasn't going to say anything at all, but then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not proud of what I'm doing, but I can't keep lying to you." The weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment she would finally tell me the truth. But instead of the clarity I was expecting, a wave of dread washed over me. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said suddenly, her voice shaking. "I've made up my mind. I don't know how to fix this, and I don't think I can anymore." Everything inside me froze. Leaving? What did she mean by that? Was she planning to walk out on me? The room spun, and I felt the ground beneath me shift, as though the life I had built was crumbling before my eyes. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What was happening? Why was she leaving? And more importantly, why had she waited until now to tell me? Before I could process it, Ava stood up, walking past me without a second glance. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I never wanted it to end like this." And just like that, she was gone, disappearing into the bedroom, leaving me in the dark, with nothing but her words and the growing dread in my chest. The next day felt like a lifetime. Ava was distant, almost invisible. She had already packed a bag when I woke up, her clothes neatly folded and stacked by the door. The sight of it stopped me cold. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the bag, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. How had we gotten here? One moment, we were just a normal couple. The next, she was talking about leaving. It didn't add up. I had to know more. I couldn't just let her walk away without understanding why. I walked into the kitchen, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Ava was already sitting at the table, her back turned to me as she stared blankly at the wall. The tension in the room was suffocating. The silence was deafening. I took a deep breath and finally broke the quiet. "Ava, please, talk to me. What is this really about? Why are you leaving?" Her shoulders tensed at the sound of my voice, but she didn't turn to face me. For a long time, she said nothing, like she was wrestling with the words. I stood there, waiting, feeling the minutes drag by. The longer she took to answer, the more my anxiety grew. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something, something much worse than I had imagined. Finally, she spoke, her voice almost too soft to hear. "I don't know how to explain it, Lucas. I've been living a lie, and I can't keep doing it. I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not." She paused, taking a shaky breath. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. "Handle what?" I asked, stepping closer to her, desperation creeping into my voice. "What's going on, Ava? You're talking in circles. You can't just leave without telling me the truth." She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears, though she quickly wiped them away. "I don't know how to tell you, Lucas. I've made mistakes. Huge mistakes. I've been lying to you about everything. A cold chill ran through me. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that this wasn't just about some petty argument or misunderstanding. She was confessing to something far deeper, something that had been festering beneath the surface for months, maybe longer. Just tell me what you're talking about, I said, my voice shaking. I can't fix anything if you don't tell me what's really going on. Ava stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I can't. Not now. I can't do this to you anymore, Lucas. I never wanted to hurt you, but I'm already too far gone. Her words felt like a slap to the face. I need to go. I need to be away from all of this. I stood frozen, unable to comprehend what she was saying. My mind was spinning. What could she have possibly done that was so terrible? Why had she waited until now to tell me? Was she trying to protect me from the truth? Or was she simply too ashamed to face it herself? You're leaving, just like that? I asked, my voice low, barely above a whisper. You can't just walk away, Ava. Not without telling me what this is really about. She bit her lip, her face contorted in pain. For a brief moment, it looked like she was going to say something more, but then she simply shook her head. I'm sorry, Lucas. I can't do this anymore. I can't stay here and lie to you. You deserve someone who can give you the truth, someone who's whole. Who are you meeting, Ava? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop myself. Who are you running to? Ava's face turned pale at my words, and I could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. She hesitated, as if weighing whether to tell me or not. But after a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice barely audible. I'm not running to anyone, Lucas. This isn't about another man. It's about me. I've been living a double life, and I can't keep pretending that everything is fine. I've been hiding things from you for months, and I don't know how to fix it. I thought I could, but now it's too late. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. What did she mean by a double life? What had she been hiding from me? I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was as if the woman I had married, the woman I thought I knew, was slipping further and further away from me, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I stood there in stunned silence as Ava turned and grabbed her bag. She didn't even look back as she walked toward the door. My heart was heavy, my thoughts a jumbled mess of confusion and betrayal. I couldn't let her go like this. I couldn't let her leave without knowing the truth. But no matter how hard I tried to keep up, no matter how much I begged her to stay, it was clear that Ava had made up her mind. She was leaving, and there was nothing I could do to change it. She opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, and before I knew it, the sound of her footsteps faded away, leaving me alone in the silence. The life I had built, the trust one had placed in her, it all felt like it was crumbling beneath my feet. I stood frozen in place, unsure of what to do next. And then, as if a switch had been flipped, a realization hit me like a wave. This wasn't over. Not yet. There was still so much more I needed to understand, so much more I had to uncover. Ava had given me pieces of the truth, but she wasn't ready to reveal it all. And I wasn't ready to let her go until I knew the full story. Something told me that if I didn't find out what was really going on now, I would never be able to forgive myself. I had no idea what I was about to discover, but I knew one thing for sure. The truth was much darker than I could have imagined. The hours after Ava left felt like a fog, the weight of the moment sinking in with every passing second. I sat on the couch, the empty apartment echoing with the sound of my own breath. Ava's bag was still by the door, as if she might walk back in and everything would return to normal. But I knew it wouldn't. Not anymore. I couldn't stop replaying her words in my mind. I've been living a double life. What did that even mean? How could someone who was supposed to be my partner, the woman I trusted above all others, be living a life so far removed from mine that she could say something like that? I knew she wasn't just talking about some innocent secret, some surprise for my birthday, or a hidden hobby. No, this was something far darker, far more complicated. But what was it? And who else was involved? I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait for her to come back. I had to act. The truth was out there. I just had to find it. And I was willing to do whatever it took to uncover it. I spent the next few hours pacing the apartment, trying to gather my thoughts. I thought about going to her work, checking with her friends, maybe even following her. But nothing felt right. I needed to think this through. I knew she wouldn't come back tonight. She had already made up her mind. But what if I could find out where she'd gone? What if I could uncover something that would explain everything? I couldn't let her leave without knowing what was really going on. The next morning, I was up early. I had already decided. I wasn't going to wait anymore. I needed answers. But the more I thought about how to get them, the more I realized that I couldn't do it alone. I needed to find out who else was involved in this twisted game she had been playing. I headed to her office first. It wasn't far from our apartment, just a few blocks down the street. When I walked in, the receptionist gave me a strange look, but didn't stop me when I asked to see her boss. Ava had always been so secretive about her work. She was protective of her space, often telling me that she didn't want to bring her work home. It was strange to think that I had never really pushed her on it. Why hadn't I? I had never met her colleagues in person, but after a few minutes, I was sitting across from the HR manager, a woman named Jenna who looked up from her desk with a raised eyebrow when I introduced myself. "You're Ava's husband, right?" she asked, her tone guarded. "Yes," I said, leaning forward. "I need to ask you something important. I know it's a bit of an odd request, but have you noticed anything strange with Ava lately? She's been acting different. She left last night without saying much, and she's been distant for weeks. I'm worried. I need to know if there's something going on at work that I don't know about." Jenna looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "I'm not sure what's going on, but Ava has been more distant lately. Not like herself." She hesitated, then added, "But there's been something else, something strange. About a month ago, she started taking a lot of personal calls, and she'd leave the office early some days, acting like she had somewhere important to be. We didn't think much of it at first, but now that you mention it." My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the crack I needed to pry open. "Do you know who she was meeting?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Jenna shifted uncomfortably in her chair, avoiding eye contact. "I'm sorry, but I don't have that kind of information. If she wanted you to know, she'd have told you." That was the answer I feared. She didn't know anything more, or maybe she just didn't want to tell me. I could see it in her eyes that there was more going on, but she wasn't ready to be the one to spill it. I felt like I was running out of options, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stop now. I wasn't going to let her leave me without an explanation. I walked out of the office with more questions than answers, my mind racing. What was Ava involved in? Who was pulling the strings, and why did she feel like she couldn't tell me? I had always thought we were partners, that we shared everything. But now, I was realizing how little I truly knew about her life, the secrets she had hidden away. Back home, I sat down at my desk, staring at the phone in my hand. I could feel the weight of it, the temptation to call her, to demand answers. But I knew better than to do that. She was shutting me out, and no amount of pressure was going to change that. But I had to try something else. Something that felt just as risky, but something I knew would give me the answers I desperately needed. I opened my laptop and started searching, diving into her social media accounts. I knew it was a long shot, but maybe I could find something there, a clue, a hint that would lead me in the right direction. As I sifted through old posts, photos of vacations and parties, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. There, buried in the comments of one of her recent photos, was a name I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be there at 7. The comment was from someone called Ryan. I clicked on the profile, my pulse racing. The picture was of a man I had never seen before, a man I didn't know existed in Ava's life. I sat back in my chair, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. Ryan. That was the name she had kept hidden from me. But who was he? And why had he been so secretive about their meetings? Was he the one pulling Ava away, keeping her from me? I had my first real lead, and I wasn't about to let it slip away. I had to know who this man was. It was time to dig deeper. The discovery of Ryan's name was like a crack in a dam, and I could feel everything starting to unravel. It wasn't just a name. It was the missing piece of the puzzle I had been desperately trying to solve. The way Ava had acted, the secrecy, the lies, all of it suddenly started to make sense. I needed to find out everything I could about him. I wasn't going to sit back and let this slip away like I had with everything else. I spent the next few hours digging deeper. Ryan's social media profile was locked down tight, but that didn't stop me. I knew that with enough persistence, I could find out more. I scrolled through the comments on Ava's photos, looking for any hint, anything that would lead me to him. And then I saw it. A photo, posted just a week ago, in which Ryan had tagged himself with Ava. They were together, smiling, standing in front of a bar. My stomach churned as I stared at the picture. She had been lying to me for weeks, hiding this man from me like he was some dirty secret she didn't want to admit. I couldn't stop looking at the picture. There was a familiarity between them that unsettled me. A closeness that shouldn't have been there, not with someone who wasn't supposed to be part of her life. I zoomed in on their faces, examining the way Ryan stood so close to her, his hand resting casually on her back. They looked like they were more than just friends. Was I being paranoid? Or was this something more? I knew I couldn't let it go. I had to find out who this guy was, what his connection to Ava really was. I ran a quick search for his name online, but it didn't lead to much. No obvious signs of him being someone important in her life. He didn't have a public profile that matched what I had found on social media. But there was one thing I could try: her phone. I had never been one to invade her privacy, but desperation made me reckless. I knew I had to get my hands on it, just for a moment, to see if I could uncover something more. That night, after Ava had left for her meeting, I grabbed her phone from the counter, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the weight of the decision as I unlocked it, going straight to her text messages. I didn't know what I was hoping to find: a name, a time, a location. Anything that would confirm what I already suspected. My breath caught in my throat when I found the conversation. The texts were short, clipped, but unmistakable. "Ryan, I'll be there at 7. Just like last time. We can't keep this a secret much longer." A chill ran through me as I read the words. What did he mean by "just like last time"? Were they meeting regularly? Were they planning something? And more importantly, why had she kept this from me? I scrolled back, looking at more messages, and what I found only deepened my suspicions. She had been talking to him for weeks, setting up plans, making sure they kept everything under wraps. But the worst part? She had made no effort to hide the fact that she was lying to me. She had been careful, but not careful enough. The last text in the conversation made my blood run cold. "Ryan, I can't wait to see you tonight. I don't care if he finds out anymore." I slammed the phone down on the counter, the weight of her betrayal crashing down on me. Ava had been having an affair, not just with some random person, but with someone she clearly had a connection with, someone she was planning a future with. It wasn't just about the lies anymore. It was about how deeply she had been involved with him, how much of her life she had kept from me. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my hands shaking, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. I had no idea what to do next. I knew I couldn't confront her right now. She was out, probably meeting Ryan again, and I had no idea when she would return. I needed more time to process this, to figure out my next move. But as I stood there, staring at the phone, I realized something else. This wasn't just about Ava anymore. This was about me, about how little I had known, how blind I had been to everything that had been happening right under my nose. I was furious, but also heartbroken. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. How could I? How could I ever look at her the same way knowing she had been hiding this entire life from me? I took a deep breath and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not until I had everything in place. I needed to be calm, calculated. I had to figure out what was really going on. What was Ava hiding? What did she want with Ryan? And more importantly, how could I make sure I didn't lose everything I had worked so hard to build? The truth was closer than I ever could have imagined, and when it finally came to light, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. It felt like everything was crashing down, but somehow, I found the strength to keep going. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I spent most of my time processing everything I had uncovered about Ava and Ryan. I replayed the messages, the conversations, the looks they had shared in the photos. My mind kept spiraling, questioning everything I had known about my wife and our life together. But despite the hurt, the anger, and the sense of betrayal, there was something deep inside me that refused to give up. I wasn't going to let the person I loved slip away without understanding what had happened. Ava came home that Friday night looking weary, her eyes red-rimmed, like she hadn't slept in days. When she stepped into the door, she looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't feel the anger I had felt before. There was just a deep sadness, and I knew she had been waiting for this moment, the moment I would finally confront her. She closed the door behind her and turned to face me, the weight of the silence between us almost unbearable. I took a deep breath and walked toward her. "I know about Ryan," I said softly, my voice steady but full of emotion. "I know what's been going on." Ava flinched, her face draining of color. But instead of the defensive, closed-off expression I had been expecting, there was something else in her eyes. It was the look of a person who was exhausted, who had been carrying a secret for far too long and was finally ready to be honest. "Lucas," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. I swallowed hard. You didn't want to hurt me? Ava, you've been lying to me for months. You've been hiding things from me. How could you think that wasn't going to hurt? She nodded, her face crumpling as she stepped closer to me. I'm so sorry, Lucas. I don't even know where to begin. I didn't plan for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at her, the weight of everything settling in. Then tell me. Tell me everything, Ava. I deserve that much. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath before speaking. Ryan. He's someone I knew before we met. He's an old friend. And when I saw him again, things started to change. I got caught up in it. It started off as just talking, reconnecting, but over time, I began to feel something I didn't want to feel, and I didn't know how to stop it. I was too ashamed to tell you, too scared to admit what I had been doing. The tears were streaming down her face now, and my heart softened. I had been so angry, so focused on the betrayal, but standing here in front of her, I could see the hurt in her eyes. The remorse. She wasn't lying about that. She was just as lost as I was. I don't know how to fix it, Lucas, she said quietly. I've messed everything up, but I want to try. I want to make it right. I love you, and I've never stopped loving you, no matter how badly I've screwed up. Her words, simple but full of sincerity, cut through the walls I had built around myself. I had never wanted to hear an apology more, and yet, as I stood there, I realized that I wasn't ready to just walk away. I wasn't ready to throw everything away. We had built a life together, and I wasn't going to give up on us so easily. I reached out and took her hands in mine, squeezing them gently. I don't know if I can forgive you right away, Ava, but I'm willing to try. I want to work through this, together. We both made mistakes, but I think we can rebuild. We just have to be honest with each other. Ava looked up at me, her eyes filled with hope and relief. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance. I don't deserve it, but I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. We stood there for a long time, just holding each other. The weight of the past few days still lingered, but I knew that this was a turning point. Ava and I weren't perfect, and neither of us had all the answers. But we were willing to fight for what we had, for the love we shared. It wouldn't be easy. There would be bumps in the road, moments of doubt, and times when it felt like we were standing on the edge of a cliff. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like we could move forward, together. And in the end, that's what mattered. We had found our way back to each other, and that was all I could ask for. The road to healing wasn't going to be quick or simple, but we would take it one step at a time, side by side. And that gave me hope. As Ava and I sat down on the couch together, talking honestly about everything, I realized something. No matter how many secrets had been kept, no matter how broken things had seemed, love, when it was real, always found a way to come back. And I wasn't going to let go of that. Not now, not ever.